Marcus wiped the grease from his hands with a dirty rag and glanced around the massive hangar. The sound of metal against metal echoed through the cavernous space as dozens of mechanics worked on various spacecraft. Some were sleek fighters, others were heavy transport vessels, and a few were the experimental craft that made his job interesting. He had been working in Hangar 7 of the Terran Defense Station for 3 years now. It was good work, honest work, and he took pride in keeping the fleet running. But today felt different. There was something in the air, a tension that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. "Hey Marcus," called Jake from across the hangar. "You seen that dragon today? The one that does the heavy lifting?" Marcus looked up from the engine he was working on. "Zara? No, haven't seen her since yesterday evening." "What?" "Captain Reynolds is looking for her. Says there's a priority job that needs those big claws of hers." Marcus frowned. Zara was always punctual, sometimes arriving even before the shift started. She never missed work, never complained, and always finished her tasks perfectly. It was strange that she hadn't shown up. "I'll keep an eye out," Marcus said, turning back to his work. The Dragon's servants had been part of the station crew for about 2 years now. They came from a planet called Drakmor, and, according to the official reports, they had requested to join the Terran Defense Force as laborers. They were strong, could lift heavy equipment that would require 3 or 4 humans and a crane, and they worked for basic food and shelter. Most of the human crew treated them well enough, though Marcus had noticed some didn't bother learning their names. To many, they were just the dragon, or that big one with the red scales. It bothered him, but he tried to lead by example, always using their proper names and treating them with the same respect he showed his human colleagues. Zara was different from the other dragon servants. She was smaller than most, with dark green scales that seemed to shimmer in the hangar lights. Her movements were precise and careful, especially when working around delicate equipment. Marcus had worked alongside her many times and found her to be incredibly intelligent, often understanding complex mechanical problems faster than some of the human technicians. But there was something sad in her golden eyes, something that made Marcus think she carried a heavy burden. He had tried to talk to her a few times, but she always kept their conversations focused on work. Professional, polite, but distant. The morning stretched on, and there was still no sign of Zara. Marcus found himself glancing toward the hangar entrance more often than usual. During his lunch break, he decided to take a walk around the station to see if he could find her. The Terran Defense Station was enormous, with multiple levels and sections dedicated to everything from crew quarters to weapons research. The Dragon servants were housed in a section near the lower levels, close to the industrial areas where they did most of their work. Marcus had never been to their quarters before, but he knew the general direction. As he walked through the corridors, he passed other crew members who nodded or waved. The station felt like a small city, with thousands of people from various worlds working together to defend this sector of space. When he reached the area where the Dragon servants lived, he was surprised by how sparse it was. The corridors were clean but plain, with basic lighting and none of the decorations or personal touches he saw in the human sections. It felt more like a storage area than living quarters. He wasn't sure which room was Zara's, and he felt awkward about knocking on random doors. Instead, he asked a passing maintenance worker if he had seen her. "The green one?" "No, haven't seen any of them today actually. They keep to themselves mostly." Marcus thanked him and continued walking. As he turned a corner, he heard something that made him stop. It was a sound he had never heard before, low and musical, but filled with such sadness that it made his chest tight. Following the sound, he found himself at the end of a corridor where a large window looked out into space. The sound was coming from around the corner, and as he got closer, he realized it was singing. Someone was singing in a language he didn't recognize, but the emotion in the voice was universal. Carefully, he peered around the corner and saw her. Zara sat in an alcove near the window, her large form curled up smaller than he would have thought possible. Her head was tilted back, and she was singing to the stars. In the light from the window, Marcus could see tears streaming down her scaled face. He had never seen a dragon cry before. He hadn't even known they could cry. The sight hit him harder than he expected. This powerful being who could lift a shuttle engine by herself was sitting alone, weeping and singing to the empty space beyond the window. Marcus didn't want to intrude, but something in his chest wouldn't let him just walk away. He stepped back around the corner and made some noise with his boots, then approached again, pretending he had just arrived. "Zara," he called softly. "Are you all right?" The singing stopped immediately. There was a rustling sound, and when Marcus came around the corner again, Zara was standing, her back straight and her face composed. If he hadn't seen the tears himself, he never would have known she had been crying. "Mechanic Marcus," she said in her formal way. "I apologize. I did not realize I was disturbing anyone." "You weren't disturbing me," Marcus said. "I was looking for you. Captain Reynolds has a job that requires your assistance." "Of course," Zara said, starting to move past him. "I will report immediately." "Wait," Marcus said, stepping slightly to block her path. "Are you okay? You seem upset." Zara's golden eyes met his for a moment, and Marcus saw a flash of something deep and painful before she looked away. "I am functional," she said. "I will complete my assigned tasks." "That's not what I asked," Marcus said gently. "I asked if you're okay." And that singing, it sounded sad. For a moment, Zara seemed to waver, as if she might actually open up to him. But then, her professional mask slipped back into place. "It was nothing important," she said. "Merely an old song from my homeworld. I should not have been singing during work hours." "It's lunch break," Marcus pointed out. "You're allowed to sing if you want to." "Thank you for informing me of my duties," Zara said, and Marcus could hear the walls going up in her voice. "I must report to Captain Reynolds now." She moved past him, her claws clicking softly on the metal floor. Marcus watched her go, feeling like he had somehow made things worse instead of better. But the image of her tears and the sound of her lonely song stayed with him as he made his way back to the hangar. The rest of the day passed normally. Zara showed up and completed her assigned tasks with her usual efficiency. She helped move a damaged fighter to the repair bay, assisted with loading cargo containers, and even helped Marcus himself when he needed someone to hold a heavy component while he worked on the connections. But Marcus couldn't stop thinking about what he had seen. During their brief interactions throughout the day, he found himself studying Zara's face, looking for signs of the sadness he had witnessed. She was professional and polite as always, but there was something in her eyes, a carefully controlled distance that hadn't been there before. As the shift ended, Marcus watched Zara gather her tools and prepare to leave. Most of the dragon servants worked together, but Zara often worked alone or with human crew members. Marcus realized he had never seen her socialize with the other dragons, and they never seemed to seek her out either. "Zara," he called as she headed toward the exit. She turned, her expression neutral. "Yes, Mechanic Marcus? Would you like to get some coffee? Or whatever you dragons drink? I mean, if you have time." Zara's eyes widened slightly, and for a moment she looked genuinely surprised. "That is not necessary, Mechanic Marcus. I have fulfilled my work obligations for today." "I know it's not necessary," Marcus said. "I was asking if you'd like to. As friends." The word friends seemed to hit Zara like a physical blow. She took a step back, and Marcus saw her hands tremble slightly before she clasped them behind her back. "Dragon servants do not typically socialize with crew members outside of work functions," she said carefully. "Says who?" Marcus asked. "It is understood," Zara said. "We are here to work. Nothing more." "But that doesn't mean you can't have friends," Marcus said. "I mean if you want to. No pressure." Zara was quiet for a long moment, and Marcus could almost see the internal struggle playing out behind her eyes. Finally, she spoke, her voice softer than usual. "Thank you for the offer, Mechanic Marcus. But it would be best if I declined." She turned to leave again, but Marcus called after her once more. "The name is just Marcus, you know. You don't have to call me Mechanic Marcus every time." Zara paused without turning around. "Goodbye, Mechanic Marcus," she said, and walked away. As Marcus watched her go, he made a decision. Something was wrong here, something more than just a homesick dragon servant. The way Zara had reacted to the word friends, the careful distance she maintained, the formal speech patterns, it all suggested something deeper was going on. He didn't know what it was, but he was going to find out. Over the next few days, Marcus started paying closer attention to the dragon servants in general. There were 12 of them on the station, and they all worked in various industrial capacities. They were strong, efficient, and uncomplaining. They arrived on time, did their jobs, and left without causing any trouble. But, as Marcus watched them more carefully, he started to notice things. Like how they never ate in the main cafeteria with the rest of the crew. How they always walked with their heads down in the corridors. How they never spoke unless spoken to by a human crew member. And then, there was the way some of the humans treated them. Nothing overtly cruel, but a kind of casual dismissal that made Marcus uncomfortable. He heard crew members refer to them as the labor or the help, rather than by their names or even as fellow beings. It reminded Marcus of stories his grandfather had told him about his time in the old Earth military, where certain groups were technically equal but practically treated as second-class citizens. The thought made him angry, but he wasn't sure what to do about it. Meanwhile, his interactions with Zara remained professional but strained. She seemed to be avoiding him when possible, and when they did work together, she was even more formal than before. It was as if his offer of friendship had somehow made things worse. On Thursday of that week, Marcus was working late in the hangar when he heard the sound again. That same sad, musical singing he had heard in the corridor. This time it was coming from somewhere within the hangar itself. The main lights had been dimmed for the night shift, and most of the day crew had gone home. Marcus had stayed behind to finish a particularly stubborn repair job on a scout ship. As he listened, he realized the singing was coming from the far end of the hangar, near where they stored the heavy lifting equipment. Moving quietly, Marcus made his way across the hangar floor, weaving between parked ships and equipment. The singing grew clearer as he got closer, and he recognized Zara's voice. But this time, she wasn't alone. Hidden behind a large cargo container, Marcus could see into a small alcove formed by stacked equipment. Zara sat there, still singing, but now Marcus could see she was cradling something in her arms. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light, Marcus realized what she was holding. It was a small communication device, the kind used for long-range personal messages. The screen was glowing softly, showing what looked like a video message. Zara was singing to the device, tears streaming down her face again, and Marcus could now hear another voice joining hers from the device's speakers. A smaller, younger voice, also singing the same sad song. Marcus felt like an intruder, but something kept him rooted in place. There was so much pain in Zara's voice, so much longing, that it made his heart ache just to listen to it. As the song ended, Marcus heard Zara speak to the device in her own language. The voice from the device replied, and even though Marcus couldn't understand the words, he could hear the love and sadness in both voices. Then, the communication ended, the screen going dark. Zara sat in silence for a moment, holding the device against her chest. Then, she began to cry harder than Marcus had ever seen anyone cry, her whole body shaking with the force of her grief. Marcus knew he should leave. This was private, personal, and none of his business. But, as he started to back away, his foot knocked against a piece of equipment, making a small clanging sound. Zara's head snapped up, her golden eyes searching the shadows. Marcus held his breath, hoping she couldn't see him, but dragon eyes were apparently better than human eyes in the dark. "Who is there?" she called, her voice steady despite the tears on her face. Marcus had two choices: run away and pretend he had never been there, or step forward and face whatever consequences came from intruding on her private moment. After a moment's hesitation, he stepped out from behind the container. "It's just me," he said quietly. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to intrude. I was working late and heard the singing." Zara quickly wiped her eyes and started to stand, but Marcus held up his hand. "Don't," he said. "You don't have to pretend with me. I can see you're hurting." For a long moment, they stared at each other across the small space. Then, to Marcus's surprise, Zara's shoulders slumped and she sank back down, still holding the communication device. "You should not be here," she said. But there was no anger in her voice, only exhaustion. "Probably not," Marcus agreed, moving closer. "But I am here. And you're crying. What's wrong?" Zara looked down at the device in her hands. "It is not something you would understand. Try me," Marcus said, settling down on a nearby crate. "I'm a good listener." Zara was quiet for so long that Marcus thought she wasn't going to answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "That was my daughter," she said, gesturing to the communication device. Marcus felt like he had been punched in the stomach. Your daughter? But I mean, the dragon servants. You're all here voluntarily, right? To work? Zara's laugh was bitter and hollow. Voluntarily, she repeated. Yes, I suppose that is one way to put it. Marcus felt his mouth go dry as he looked at Zara's tear-stained face. The way she said his name, the pain in her voice when she mentioned her daughter, and now this question about what he really knew about the dragons. It all pointed to something much darker than he had imagined. I know what everyone knows, Marcus said slowly. Drakmor requested to join the Terran Defense Alliance. Your people volunteered to work as laborers in exchange for protection and trade agreements. Zara nodded slowly. That is the official story, yes. And it is even partially true. She clutched the communication device tighter. Drakmor did request to join the alliance. But the dragons working here did not volunteer. What do you mean? Marcus asked, though the cold pit forming in his stomach suggested he was beginning to understand. We are hostages, Zara said simply. Insurance to ensure our world's cooperation. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He stared at Zara, hoping he had misunderstood, but the look in her eyes told him everything he needed to know. That's impossible, he said weakly. The Alliance doesn't take hostages. We're the good guys. Are we? Zara asked. Your alliance arrived at Drakmor with a fleet of warships. They offered us a choice. Join willingly and provide workers for your industrial needs, or be conquered and have workers taken by force. Marcus felt sick. But the official report said what they needed to say, Zara interrupted. Drakmor agreed to the terms because the alternative was war. And part of those terms was that prominent dragons from important families would come to work in Alliance facilities to ensure continued cooperation. Important families, Marcus repeated, pieces falling into place. Zara, who are you? I mean, who were you on Drakmor? Zara was quiet for a long moment, staring down at the communication device. When she spoke, her voice was soft but filled with a dignity that Marcus had never heard from her before. I am Zarathes Goldwing, daughter of the Skyward Throne, first princess of the Western Reaches. She looked up at Marcus. Or I was, before I became dragon servant number 7 in your hangar. Marcus couldn't breathe. You're a princess. I was a princess, Zara corrected. Now I am a guarantee. As long as I and the others work quietly and without complaint, our families remain safe. Our worlds remain unharmed. The others, Marcus said. The other dragon servants. They're all nobility, military leaders, prominent scholars, beloved teachers, Zara confirmed. We represent the most important families and institutions of Drakmor. If any of us fail to comply, if any of us try to escape or cause trouble, our loved ones pay the price. Marcus stood up abruptly, pacing to the edge of the alcove. His mind was reeling, trying to process what he had just learned. Everything he thought he knew about the station, about the Alliance, about his own role in all of this, was crumbling around him. This can't be right, he said. I work for these people. I serve in their fleet. We're supposed to be protecting innocent worlds, not conquering them. Perhaps that is what you were told, Zara said. Perhaps that is what many of your people believe. But the reality is more complex. Marcus turned back to her. The device you were holding. The voice I heard. That was your daughter? Zara nodded, a fresh tear rolling down her scaled cheek. Lyrathes. She is 7 years old, by your counting. I was allowed to speak with her once per week, for 5 minutes, under supervision. She held up the communication device. Today I learned that privilege has been revoked. What? What? Because someone reported that I was developing inappropriate relationships with Alliance personnel, Zara said, looking directly at Marcus. Apparently, our conversation the other day, your offer of friendship, was seen as suspicious. Marcus felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Of course you did not know, Zara said. How could you? You were told we were volunteers, happy to be here, grateful for the opportunity to serve. No one told you that speaking kindly to us could result in punishment. What kind of punishment? Marcus asked, though he dreaded the answer. For me, no more communication with my daughter until further notice, Zara said. For her, Zara's voice broke. They told me she would be moved to a more secure location to ensure her continued safety. Marcus sank back down on the crate, his head in his hands. This is insane. This has to be some kind of mistake. The people I work for, Captain Reynolds, Admiral Chun, they're good people. They would never be part of something like this. I am sure they are good people, Zara said gently. But good people can serve corrupt systems without knowing it. How many humans on this station do you think know the truth about us? Marcus thought about it. Captain Reynolds acts like he thinks you're all volunteers. Most of the crew treats you like employees. Maybe not always respectfully, but not like prisoners either. Exactly, Zara said. The truth is compartmentalized. Only those who need to know the full situation are told. Everyone else is given a version of events that allows them to sleep peacefully at night. But you could tell them, Marcus said. You could tell people the truth. Zara's laugh was bitter. Could I? And what do you think would happen to my daughter when word got back to those who are watching her? What do you think would happen to the families of the other servants here? Marcus was quiet, the implications sinking in. So you all just suffer in silence. To protect your loved ones. We do our jobs, we cause no trouble, and we hope that someday, perhaps, circumstances will change, Zara said. It is not much of a life, but it is better than the alternative. The singing, Marcus said suddenly. That song I heard you singing. What was it? A lullaby, Zara said, her voice soft. One I used to sing to Lyra when she was smaller. She sang it back to me during our communications to let me know she remembered. More tears flowed down her face. Now she will have to sing it alone. Marcus stood up again, but this time it was with purpose rather than agitation. No, he said firmly. This is wrong. This is completely wrong. And I'm not going to just sit here and let it happen. Marcus, you cannot. I can't what? I can't report this. I can't tell people what's really happening here. You can, Zara said. But you will not be believed. And even if you are, what do you think will happen to us? Do you think your superiors will simply let us go and apologize for the misunderstanding? Marcus paused, realizing she was right. If this conspiracy was as deep as it seemed, simply reporting it through normal channels would likely result in either being dismissed as crazy or worse. Then, what do you suggest, he asked. That I just pretend I don't know? That would be safest, Zara said. For all of us. Safest for who? Not for you. Not for your daughter. Marcus began pacing again. There has to be something we can do. Marcus, Zara said, standing up and moving closer to him. For the first time since he had known her, she reached out and put her large, clawed hand on his shoulder. I understand your desire to help. Your kindness is part of what made me trust you enough to tell you the truth. But you must understand, any action you take could make things worse for us. Worse how? If the overseers suspect that we have told anyone the truth, if they think we are planning something or trying to gain sympathy, they will crack down harder. They might decide we are too much of a risk, and Zara's voice trailed off. And what? And they might decide to make examples of us. Public ones. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. You mean they would kill you? They might, Zara said. Or they might simply hurt our families to remind us why we must remain quiet. Marcus sank down on the crate again, feeling overwhelmed. So there's nothing I can do. Nothing anyone can do. There might be, Zara said quietly. But it would be dangerous. And it would require more than just one person. Tell me. Zara hesitated. There are others in the Alliance who know the truth. People in positions of authority who disapprove of these methods, but who are currently powerless to act alone. Like who? I cannot say for certain. But occasionally we overhear conversations, or we see reactions when certain reports are filed. There are cracks in the conspiracy, people who are uncomfortable with what is happening. Marcus leaned forward. So if we could identify these people, maybe we could work together to expose the truth. Perhaps, Zara said. But it would require careful investigation. And it would mean putting yourself at risk. What kind of risk? If you start asking questions about us, if you start poking around in classified information, you will draw attention. And if they discover what you are doing. Zara left the sentence hanging. Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking, what about the other dragon servants? Do they know I know the truth? I have not told them, Zara said. I was not planning to tell you either. It simply happened. Would they trust me if they knew? Zara considered this. Some might. Others would be too afraid. We have learned to be very careful about who we trust. But if I could prove I was serious about helping, If I could show them I was willing to take risks. It might be possible, Zara admitted. But, Marcus, you must understand what you would be committing to. This is not just about helping a few dragon servants. If you pursue this, you would be challenging a system that goes to the highest levels of the Alliance government. Good, Marcus said with more conviction than he felt. Maybe it needs to be challenged. Zara studied his face in the dim light of the hangar. You are serious about this? Dead serious, Marcus confirmed. I can't just go back to my normal routine knowing what I know now. I can't pretend that everything is fine while you and the others suffer. And your career? Your life here? You could lose everything. Marcus thought about his comfortable routine, his steady job, his simple life maintaining spacecraft, and going home to his small quarters each night. It seemed very small and unimportant compared to what Zara and the others were enduring. Some things are more important than careers, he said. Zara was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, there was something different in her voice, a note of hope that hadn't been there before. If you are truly serious about this, she said, there is someone you should meet. Who? Another human. Someone who already knows the truth and has been looking for ways to help us. Marcus's heart leaped. There's already someone working on this. In a small way, Zara said. Dr. Elizabeth Santos, from the medical bay. She has been treating us for various injuries and illnesses, and she began to suspect something was wrong when she noticed patterns in our behavior and health issues that were consistent with psychological trauma and chronic stress. She figured it out on her own. She started asking careful questions. Eventually, one of the other servants, Threckmore, told her the truth. He was badly injured in a loading accident and was delirious from pain medication. He spoke about his children back home, about the threats that had been made. And Dr. Santos believed him. She investigated quietly and confirmed what he had told her. She has been trying to find a way to help us ever since, but she faces the same problems we do. No one to trust, no one in authority who she can be certain would help rather than report her. Marcus felt a surge of relief. He wasn't alone in this. When can I meet her? She comes to check on us during the evening shift twice per week, Zara said. Tomorrow is one of those days. I could arrange for you to accidentally encounter her during her rounds. That sounds perfect, Marcus said. What do I need to know about her? She is careful, suspicious, and very protective of us, Zara warned. She will not trust you immediately just because I vouch for you. You will need to prove yourself to her. How? I am not sure, Zara admitted. But she will test you somehow. She will want to know that you are genuine and that you understand the risks. Marcus nodded. I understand. And Zara? He paused. Thank you for trusting me with the truth. I know it wasn't easy. Thank you for giving me a reason to hope again, Zara replied. It has been a long time since I felt like someone cared about our situation. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both lost in thought. Finally, Marcus stood up. I should get going, he said. We don't want anyone to notice us having long conversations. Yes, Zara agreed, also standing. And Marcus? Please be careful. These people do not hesitate to eliminate threats to their operation. I will, Marcus promised. And Zara? We're going to figure this out. We're going to find a way to help you get back to your daughter. For the first time since he had known her, Zara smiled. It was a small smile, tentative and fragile, but it transformed her entire face. I would like that very much, she said. As Marcus made his way home through the quiet corridors of the station, his mind was racing. Everything in his world had changed in the course of a single conversation. The organization he served, the people he trusted, the simple life he had built, all of it was now questionable. But, along with the shock and confusion, he felt something else, purpose. For the first time in years, he had a mission that mattered more than routine maintenance and steady paychecks. He was going to help Zara and the other dragon servants. He was going to find a way to reunite her with her daughter. He just had to figure out how to do it without getting them all killed. Back in his quarters, Marcus lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling and thinking about everything Zara had told him. He thought about the 12 dragon servants on the station, all of them nobility or other important figures from their homeworld, all of them separated from their families and forced to work in silence. He thought about the systematic deception that allowed this to happen, how the truth had been compartmentalized so that good people like himself could participate unknowingly. He wondered how many other stations had similar arrangements, how many other worlds had been coerced into compliance through hostages. Most of all, he thought about Zara's daughter, Lyra, a 7-year-old princess who was being used as leverage against her mother. The idea made him furious. By morning, Marcus had made his decision. Whatever it took, whatever the risks, he was going to help expose the system and free the dragon servants. It was the right thing to do, and for the first time in his life, doing the right thing mattered more than staying safe. The next day at work, Marcus found it almost impossible to concentrate on his normal tasks. Every time he saw one of the dragon's servants, he found himself studying their faces, looking for signs of the pain and fear that Zara had revealed. Now that he knew what to look for, he could see it everywhere. The way they kept their eyes down when humans were around. The careful, formal way they spoke. The tension in their movements, as if they were always expecting punishment. How had he not noticed it before? When Zara arrived for her shift, she gave him a small nod, barely perceptible to anyone who wasn't watching for it. Throughout the day, they worked together on several tasks, maintaining their professional demeanor while both knowing that everything between them had changed. As evening approached, Marcus found Dr. Elizabeth Santos was nothing like what Marcus had expected. When Zara had mentioned a doctor who was secretly helping the dragon servants, Marcus had pictured someone older, perhaps stern and militant. Instead, Dr. Santos was a woman in her early 40s with kind eyes and laugh lines around them, wearing a standard medical uniform with her graying brown hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Marcus encountered her exactly as Zara had planned. He had stayed late in the hangar again, working on a stubborn communications array, when Dr. Santos appeared with her medical kit to check on Karath, one of the dragon's servants who had injured his wing the previous week. "Oh," Dr. Santos said when she saw Marcus. "I didn't realize anyone else was still here." "Just finishing up some repairs," Marcus said, trying to sound casual while his heart hammered in his chest. "Don't mind me." Dr. Santos nodded and moved to where Karath was waiting near the medical station they had set up in one corner of the hangar. Marcus watched from the corner of his eye as she examined Karath's wing, speaking to him in quiet, gentle tones that were very different from the brusque efficiency most medical personnel showed the dragon servants. "How is the pain today?" she asked Karath. "Manageable, Dr. Santos," Karath replied in the formal tone all the dragon's servants used with humans. "I asked about the pain, not whether you can work through it," Dr. Santos said with a slight smile. "There's a difference." Marcus saw Karath's expression flicker with surprise at this distinction. "It is significant," he admitted quietly. "I thought it might be," Dr. Santos said, retrieving a pain medication injector from her kit. "This should help. And I want you to take tomorrow off from any heavy lifting. Let it heal properly." "I do not believe that is possible, Doctor," Karath said carefully. "I have assigned duties." "I'll talk to your supervisor," Dr. Santos said firmly. Medical orders override work assignments. As she administered the medication, Marcus noticed the way Dr. Santos interacted with Karath. There was a respect in her manner, a recognition of his dignity that was notably absent in most human interactions with the dragon servants. When she spoke to him, she looked him in the eyes rather than addressing his chest or looking away entirely. After finishing with Karath, Dr. Santos gathered her equipment and started to leave. As she passed near Marcus's workstation, she paused. "Working late again, mister?" "Marcus. Just Marcus," he said, looking up from the communications array. "And, yeah, this thing is being particularly stubborn tonight." "I know the feeling," Dr. Santos said. "Some problems seem simple on the surface, but turn out to be much more complicated once you start digging into them." Something in the way she said it made Marcus look at her more carefully. There was a weight to her words that suggested she wasn't just talking about mechanical problems. "Sometimes the real issue isn't what you think it is at first," Marcus said, testing the waters. "Sometimes you have to look deeper to find the actual cause." Dr. Santos nodded slowly. "Exactly. And sometimes when you find the real cause, you discover it's much worse than you initially thought." They looked at each other for a moment, and Marcus felt like they were having two conversations simultaneously. On the surface, they were discussing mechanical repairs. Underneath, something much more significant was being communicated. "Dr. Santos," Marcus said, making a decision. "Could I ask you something?" "Privately." Dr. Santos glanced around the hangar, confirming they were alone except for Karath, who was gathering his tools at the far end of the space. Of course, she said, moving closer to his workstation. Marcus took a deep breath. I've noticed some things about the dragon servants. Things that don't quite add up with what we're told about their status here. Dr. Santos's expression didn't change, but Marcus saw her hands tighten slightly on her medical kit. What kind of things? Behavior patterns that seem more consistent with trauma than with voluntary service, Marcus said, using the kind of language he thought a medical professional would appreciate. Signs of chronic stress, excessive formality, avoidance of social interaction. You're very observant for a mechanic, Dr. Santos said carefully. I pay attention to the people I work with, Marcus replied. And, lately, I've been wondering if there are things about this situation that I don't know. Dr. Santos was quiet for a long moment, studying his face. Marcus felt like he was being evaluated, tested for something he couldn't quite identify. What makes you think there might be more to the situation? She asked finally. Marcus hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. Let's just say I've had some conversations that have opened my eyes. Conversations with whom? This was it, Marcus realized. The moment where he either proved his trustworthiness or confirmed Dr. Santos's suspicions that he was some kind of plant or spy. With Zara, he said quietly. She told me the truth about why the dragon servants are really here. Dr. Santos's expression didn't change, but Marcus saw something shift in her eyes. And what truth is that? That they're hostages, Marcus said. Insurance to guarantee Drakmore's cooperation with Alliance policies. Dr. Santos looked around the hangar again, then moved even closer to Marcus. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. When did she tell you this? Last night, Marcus admitted. I found her crying in the hangar. She was trying to communicate with her daughter, but they've cut off her access. Because someone reported her for having inappropriate contact with Alliance personnel, Dr. Santos said, and it wasn't a question. Marcus felt his stomach drop. You know about that? I know about a lot of things, Dr. Santos said grimly, including the fact that your offer of friendship to Zara was reported to her handlers within hours of it happening. Her handlers? The people who monitor the dragon servants, who ensure their compliance through threats to their families. Dr. Santos set down her medical kit and leaned against Marcus's workbench. Marcus, how much do you really know about what you've gotten yourself into? Probably not enough, Marcus admitted. But I know I can't just ignore what I've learned. Even if acting on that knowledge puts you in danger? Even then, Marcus said firmly, these people deserve better than this. Dr. Santos studied him for another moment, then seemed to come to some kind of decision. Zara said you wanted to help, she said. What exactly did you have in mind? I don't know yet, Marcus admitted. I was hoping you might have some ideas. She said you've been working on this problem for a while. Working on it, yes. But progress has been limited, Dr. Santos said. The system is designed to be self-sustaining. The dragon servants can't speak out because their families will be harmed. Those few of us who know the truth can't act openly because we'll be removed from our positions and replaced with more compliant personnel. But there has to be something we can do, Marcus insisted. There might be, Dr. Santos said, but it would require careful planning and significant risk, and it would need more people than just the three of us. 3 of us. You, me, and Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chun from security, Dr. Santos said. Admiral Chen's daughter, as it happens. She's been conducting her own quiet investigation into irregularities in the Dragon Servants files. Marcus felt a surge of hope. Admiral Chen's daughter? That could be useful. It could be, Dr. Santos agreed. Or it could be extremely dangerous. If her father is involved in this conspiracy, approaching Sarah could expose all of us. Do you think he is involved? I honestly don't know, Dr. Santos said. That's part of the problem. We don't know how far up this goes, or who can be trusted. Marcus thought about this. What about the evidence? If we could gather enough proof of what's really happening, maybe we could find someone in authority who would be willing to act. What kind of evidence did you have in mind? Documentation, records, maybe even recordings of the dragon's servants telling their stories. Marcus was thinking out loud now. Something that couldn't be dismissed or covered up. Dr. Santos shook her head. The dragon servants would never agree to be recorded. The risk to their families would be too great. Then, we find another way, Marcus said. There have to be official records somewhere that contradict the public story. Personnel files, communication logs, something. Accessing those records would require security clearances we don't have, Dr. Santos pointed out. But Lieutenant Commander Chen might have access, Marcus said. Or at least she might know how to get it. Perhaps, Dr. Santos conceded. But approaching her is a huge gamble. If we're wrong about her, if she reports us, then we're no worse off than we are now, Marcus said. Except that the dragon's servants would be in even more danger. Exactly. Dr. Santos picked up her medical kit again. Which is why we need to be absolutely certain before we make any moves. How do we become certain? We watch. We listen. We gather intelligence about who knows what, and who might be sympathetic to our cause. Dr. Santos checked her watch. And we have to be patient. Rushing into this will get people killed. Marcus felt frustrated by the need for patience when he knew Zara and the others were suffering. But he understood the logic. What can I do in the meantime? Keep doing what you're doing, Dr. Santos said. Work with the dragon servants, treat them with respect, and pay attention to anything unusual you might observe. But be careful about showing too much interest. Someone is already watching you because of your interaction with Zara. The reminder sent a chill down Marcus's spine. What do you mean, watching me? Your work assignments, your access to different parts of the station, your interactions with sensitive personnel, all of it is being monitored more closely than it was a week ago, Dr. Santos explained. Whoever is running this operation doesn't like anomalies. Great, Marcus muttered. So I'm already a target. You're a person of interest, Dr. Santos corrected. There's a difference, but not much of one. As if summoned by their conversation, the hangar's main door opened, and Captain Reynolds walked in, accompanied by two security officers Marcus didn't recognize. Good evening, Dr. Marcus, Captain Reynolds said pleasantly. Working late tonight. Just finishing up some medical checks on the injured personnel, Dr. Santos replied smoothly. And Marcus was handling some maintenance issues. Excellent, Captain Reynolds said. We like to see such dedication to duty. His eyes moved between them, and Marcus felt like the captain was evaluating something. I hope the dragon servants are recovering well from their injuries. We depend on them for so many important tasks. They're all healing appropriately, Dr. Santos said. Though I do recommend lighter duties for a few of them while they recover. Of course, Captain Reynolds said. We certainly don't want to overwork our volunteers. Their welfare is very important to us. The way he said volunteers made Marcus's skin crawl, but he kept his expression neutral. If you'll excuse me, Captain, Dr. Santos said. I need to return to the medical bay. I have some reports to file. Of course, Captain Reynolds said. And Marcus, how is the communications array repair coming along? Marcus glanced back at his workstation. Almost finished, sir. Should be ready for testing in the morning. Excellent work, as always, Captain Reynolds said. Well, don't let us keep you from your duties. As Dr. Santos left the hangar, she caught Marcus's eye for just a moment, giving him an almost imperceptible shake of her head. The message was clear. Say nothing, do nothing suspicious. After Captain Reynolds and the security officers left, Marcus found himself alone with his thoughts and a growing sense of paranoia. Had that encounter been random, or had they known about his conversation with Dr. Santos? Were they always that interested in who was working late, or was this new surveillance? As he finished his work on the communications array, Marcus realized that his simple life on the station was over. Whether he succeeded in helping the dragon servants or not, whether he was caught and punished or not, he could never go back to the innocent ignorance he had enjoyed just a few days ago. But as he thought about Zara's tears, about her daughter being held hostage on a distant world, about all the dragon's servants suffering in silence, Marcus knew he had made the right choice. Some truths, once learned, demanded action regardless of the consequences. The question now was whether he and his allies could act quickly and carefully enough to make a difference before they were discovered and stopped. Over the next few days, Marcus threw himself into his work while trying to observe everything around him with new eyes. He paid attention to which officers visited the hangar and why, which conversations seemed to stop when he approached, and which personnel seemed to have authority over the dragon servants beyond the normal work chain of command. He also began to notice things about the dragon's servants themselves that he had overlooked before. The way they moved through the station in groups when possible, never alone unless absolutely necessary. The way they seemed to have their own informal communication system, passing information through subtle gestures and expressions that most humans would miss. Most importantly, he began to see signs of the remarkable individuals they had been before becoming servants. Karath, despite his injured wing, had an encyclopedic knowledge of spacecraft systems that surpassed many of the human engineers. Threckmore, the largest of the dragon's servants, had a gentle precision when handling delicate equipment that spoke to years of careful training. Veltar, the smallest, could diagnose mechanical problems with an intuitive understanding that Marcus envied. These weren't simple laborers or volunteers looking for steady work. They were skilled professionals, educators, leaders, people who had been forced into menial positions to serve a political purpose. The meeting with Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chun happened 3 weeks later, in the most unlikely of places, the station's small arboretum. Dr. Santos had arranged it, using the excuse of a routine security consultation about medical protocols for non-human personnel. Marcus was there to repair an environmental control unit that had been malfunctioning, causing the temperature in the plant sanctuary to fluctuate dangerously. It was delicate work that required several hours, providing perfect cover for what appeared to be a chance encounter. Lieutenant Commander Chun was younger than Marcus had expected, probably in her early 30s, with her father's sharp eyes, but a more open expression. She wore her security uniform with crisp precision, but when she spoke to Dr. Santos about medical procedures, Marcus detected something in her voice that suggested she cared more about the well-being of the dragon's servants than her position required. The current protocols seem adequate for routine medical care, Sarah was saying as Marcus worked on the environmental controls nearby, but I have some concerns about psychological welfare assessments. What kind of concerns? Dr. Santos asked, though Marcus suspected she knew exactly what Sarah meant. The standard wellness questionnaires don't seem designed for non-human personnel, Sarah said carefully, especially personnel who might be experiencing cultural adjustment issues or other stressors related to their work arrangements. Dr. Santos nodded. I've noticed some of those same issues. The dragon servants often show signs of chronic stress that aren't being addressed by our current protocols. Chronic stress, Sarah repeated. That's an interesting way to put it. Marcus continued working on the environmental controls, but he was listening to every word. This conversation sounded like two people carefully probing to see if the other could be trusted with sensitive information. Dr. Santos, Sarah said after a moment, in your professional opinion, do you believe the dragon servants are satisfied with their current situation? It was a loaded question, and Marcus held his breath waiting for the answer. In my professional opinion, Dr. Santos said slowly, I believe they are experiencing significant psychological distress that is inconsistent with voluntary service satisfaction. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then, that's a very diplomatic way of saying something quite serious. Yes, Dr. Santos agreed. It is. Marcus made some noise with his tools, reminding them of his presence, and both women glanced in his direction. Dr. Santos gave him a slight nod. Lieutenant Commander Chun, Dr. Santos said, I believe you've met Marcus before. He's one of our senior mechanics, specializes in communications and environmental systems. Of course, Sarah said, moving closer to where Marcus was working. How are the repairs going? Almost finished, Marcus said, looking up from his work. Though I have to say, it's refreshing to work in here. So peaceful compared to the hangar. I imagine it is, Sarah said. You spend a lot of time working with the dragon servants in the hangar, don't you? Yes, ma'am, Marcus confirmed. They're good workers. Very skilled, actually. Sometimes I think their talents are being underutilized. Sarah and Dr. Santos exchanged a look. Underutilized how? Sarah asked. Marcus set down his tools and faced her directly. Well, for instance, Zara has an intuitive understanding of spacecraft communication systems that rivals any engineer I've worked with. But she's mostly assigned to heavy lifting and cargo handling. Seems like a waste of her abilities. Interesting observation, Sarah said. Have you mentioned this to anyone in your chain of command? I've thought about it, Marcus said. But I get the impression that the dragon servants' work assignments aren't really up for discussion. Why do you think that is? Sarah asked, and Marcus could tell this was an important question. Marcus paused, considering his answer. Dr. Santos had warned him that Sarah would test him, that he would need to prove himself before she would trust him with the truth. This felt like that test. Honestly, Marcus said, sometimes I wonder if there are aspects of their situation that aren't widely known. Things that might explain why they seem so careful all the time. Careful how? Like they're afraid of making mistakes, Marcus said. Or like they're worried about consequences that go beyond normal workplace discipline. Sarah nodded slowly. You're very perceptive, Marcus. And your observations are consistent with some concerns I've been developing about our non-human personnel protocols. What kind of concerns? Marcus asked, though he was fairly certain he already knew. Sarah looked at Dr. Santos, who gave her an encouraging nod. The kind that suggests there are significant problems with how we treat the dragon servants, Sarah said quietly. Problems that go beyond simple workplace inefficiency. Marcus felt a surge of relief. She knew. She was already investigating. I'm glad to hear someone in authority is paying attention to this, Marcus said. I was starting to think I was the only one who had noticed. You're not the only one, Dr. Santos assured him. But the three of us may be the only ones in a position to do something about it. The three of us. Marcus looked between them. So you're both aware of the real situation? We're both aware that the official story doesn't match the observable facts, Sarah said carefully. But I'd like to hear what you know before I share what I've discovered. Marcus looked at Dr. Santos, who nodded encouragingly. Taking a deep breath, Marcus told Sarah everything Zara had revealed to him about the true nature of the dragon servant's presence on the station, about the coercion of Drakmor, the hostage system, and the threats to their families. As he spoke, Marcus watched Sarah's expression change from professional interest to barely controlled anger. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. That confirms everything I've suspected, she said finally, and explains some discrepancies I've found in the official records. What kind of discrepancies? Dr. Santos asked. Classified communications that contradict the public narrative about Drakmor's membership in the Alliance, Sarah said. Personnel files for the dragon servants that have been heavily redacted in ways that don't make sense for voluntary workers. And financial records showing payments to something called compliance assurance operations that I can't find any legitimate explanation for. Compliance assurance operations, Marcus repeated. That sounds ominous. It is ominous, Sarah confirmed. Because when I tried to trace those payments, I found they lead to black budget operations run out of Alliance intelligence. Dr. Santos frowned. Alliance intelligence is running this. At least partially, Sarah said. Which means this operation has approval at very high levels of the Alliance government. Marcus felt his heart sink. So even if we expose it, the people responsible might be too powerful to face consequences. Maybe, Sarah said. Or maybe we just need to find the right people to expose it to. What do you mean? Not everyone in the Alliance leadership knows about this operation, Sarah explained. Compartmentalization works both ways. If we can gather enough evidence and present it to the right officials, we might be able to force action even against Alliance intelligence. What kind of evidence would we need? Dr. Santos asked. Documentation of the coercion, proof that the dragon servants are being held against their will, evidence of threats to their families, Sarah said. And, ideally, testimony from the dragon servants themselves. They'll never give testimony, Dr. Santos said immediately. The risk to their families would be too great. Not if we could guarantee their safety, Sarah said. And the safety of their families. Marcus looked at her skeptically. How could we possibly guarantee that? By making the cost of retaliation higher than the cost of cooperation, Sarah said. If this operation becomes public knowledge, if there's enough outrage and attention, then harming the dragon servants or their families would only make the scandal worse. That's a big gamble, Dr. Santos pointed out. We'd be betting the lives of innocent people on our ability to generate enough public pressure. It is a big gamble, Sarah agreed. But the alternative is allowing this to continue indefinitely. Marcus thought about Zara, about her tears as she sang to her daughter across impossible distance, about all the dragon servants suffering in silence to protect their loved ones. What would you need us to do? He asked. Sarah looked around the arboretum, ensuring they were still alone. First, we need to document everything. Every conversation, every observation, every piece of evidence we can gather about the true nature of this operation. How do we do that without attracting attention? Dr. Santos asked. Carefully, Sarah said. We stick to our normal routines, but we pay attention to details we might have missed before. Marcus, you're in the best position to observe the dragon servants' daily treatment. Dr. Santos, you have access to their medical records and psychological evaluations. I have security clearance that lets me access some operational records. And then? Marcus asked. Then, we find allies, Sarah said. Other people in the Alliance who would be horrified by this operation if they knew about it. People with the authority and integrity to take action. Do you have anyone in mind? Dr. Santos asked. A few possibilities, Sarah said. But I need to be careful about how I approach them. One wrong move, and this whole investigation could be shut down before we have enough evidence to make a difference. Marcus nodded, understanding the delicate nature of their situation. How long do you think we have? I don't know, Sarah admitted. But I get the impression that this operation is being evaluated for expansion to other worlds. If that happens, we'll have missed our chance to stop it. The thought of the hostage system being expanded to other species, other worlds, made Marcus feel sick. Then, we need to move quickly. Quickly but carefully, Sarah emphasized. One mistake could get us all removed from our positions, and, more importantly, it could make things much worse for the dragon servants. They spent the next hour planning their investigation strategy, discussing what evidence they needed and how they could gather it safely. When they finally parted ways, Marcus felt both hopeful and terrified. For the first time since learning the truth about the dragon servants, he felt like they might actually be able to do something to help. But he also understood more clearly than ever how dangerous their situation had become. Over the following weeks, Marcus threw himself into the investigation with careful intensity. He documented every interaction between the dragon servants and station personnel, noting patterns of treatment and behavior that supported the hostage theory. He paid special attention to the mysterious personnel who seemed to have authority over the dragon servants without any official role in the station's hierarchy. Dr. Santos provided medical evidence of chronic stress and psychological trauma among the dragon servants, careful to frame her observations in professional language that couldn't be easily dismissed. She also began developing profiles of their individual personalities and skills, building a case that these were highly capable individuals being grossly underutilized in their current roles. Sarah's work was the most dangerous, as she used her security clearance to access classified records and communications. What she found was both damning and terrifying. Evidence of a systematic program to identify and coerce prominent individuals from newly allied worlds, using them as leverage to ensure continued cooperation. The operation had been running for over 5 years, starting with smaller, less influential species before moving on to more significant targets like the dragons of Drakmor. The documentation made it clear that this was not an isolated incident or a rogue operation, but a deliberate policy approved at the highest levels of Alliance intelligence. But, as they gathered evidence, Marcus became increasingly aware that they were being watched. His access to certain areas of the station was quietly restricted. Dr. Santos found that some of her medical files were being audited more frequently. Sarah reported that her security clearance was being reviewed for routine compliance checks. The pressure was building, and Marcus knew they were running out of time. The crisis came on a Thursday morning when Marcus arrived at the hangar to find Zara missing from her usual workstation. When he asked about her, Karath informed him that she had been taken for administrative consultation early that morning. Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. Administrative consultation was never good news for the dragon servants, but given the recent attention their investigation had attracted, it could mean that their activities had been discovered. He found Dr. Santos in the medical bay, her face pale with worry. They took Threkmor too, she said without preamble. And Veltar. All 3 of the dragons who have shown any signs of trusting human personnel. Do you think they know? Marcus asked. I think someone suspects something, Dr. Santos said grimly. And they're removing potential sources of information before we can act. Marcus felt panic rising in his chest. If Zara was being interrogated, if they were threatening her with harm to her daughter, she might be forced to reveal everything she had told him. We have to do something, he said. We can't just let them disappear. What can we do? Dr. Santos asked desperately. We don't even know where they've been taken. I might, said a voice from the doorway. They turned to see Sarah Chun, her face grim but determined. I've been monitoring security communications. The 3 missing dragon servants have been transferred to detention level C for questioning. Questioning about what? Marcus asked, though he feared he already knew. About potential security breaches involving Alliance personnel, Sarah said. They're looking for evidence that the dragon servants have been sharing classified information with unauthorized individuals. Meaning us, Dr. Santos said. Meaning us, Sarah confirmed. Which means we're out of time for careful investigation. We need to act now, or we're going to lose our only chance to help them. Marcus looked between his 2 allies, seeing his own determination reflected in their faces. They had known this moment would come eventually. The moment when they would have to choose between their own safety and doing what was right. What do you have in mind? Marcus asked. Sarah's smile was grim but resolute. Something that's going to get us all in a lot of trouble, she said. But it might also be enough to save the dragon servants and expose this entire operation. I'm listening, Marcus said. We're going to break them out, Sarah said. And then we're going to make sure the entire galaxy knows the truth about what the Alliance has been doing to these people. Marcus felt a surge of fear and excitement. It was an insane plan, almost certainly doomed to failure. But as he thought about Zara's tears, about her daughter being held hostage, about all the innocent people suffering because of the Alliance's policies, he knew he didn't have a choice. The plan was audacious in its simplicity and terrifying in its implications. Sarah would use her security access to create a maintenance emergency on detention level C, requiring immediate evacuation of all non-essential personnel. Marcus would arrive as the assigned technician to handle the emergency, giving him access to the detention area. Dr. Santos would position herself in the medical bay, ready to treat any injured personnel who might need immediate care after the incident. It was the kind of plan that could only work once, and if it failed, all 3 of them would likely disappear into Alliance detention facilities alongside the dragon servants. The timing has to be perfect, Sarah explained as they huddled in the arboretum again, speaking in whispers despite the environmental masking provided by the plant life. The shift change happens at 1,400 hours. There's a brief window where the replacement security team is getting briefed while the outgoing team is finishing their reports. How brief? Marcus asked. 8 minutes, maybe 10 if we're lucky, Sarah said. That's how long you'll have to get to the detention cells, extract our people, and get them to Dr. Santos in the medical bay. And then what? Dr. Santos asked. Even if we successfully extract them, where can they go? The entire station will be searching for them within minutes. That's where the second phase of the plan comes in, Sarah said grimly. We don't just extract them. We broadcast their story to every communication system we can access. Make it impossible for the Alliance to cover this up. Marcus felt a chill of fear and excitement. You're talking about treason. All of us. Our careers, our freedom, our lives. We'll lose everything. Probably, Sarah agreed. But if we succeed, we might save not just the dragon servants on this station, but prevent this system from being expanded to other worlds. They spent the next 3 hours going over every detail of the plan, identifying potential failure points, and developing contingencies. The more they planned, the more Marcus realized how much could go wrong. But every time he started to doubt their chances, he thought about Zara's golden eyes filled with tears, and his resolve hardened. The next day, Marcus went through his normal routine while fighting waves of nervous energy. He worked on routine maintenance tasks, interacted normally with the remaining dragon servants, and tried not to think about what would happen if their plan failed. At 1,330 hours, he received the emergency call he had been expecting. Emergency maintenance required on detention level C. Came the announcement over his comm unit. Environmental system failure, immediate response needed. Marcus grabbed his tools and headed for the detention level, his heart hammering so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. As he rode the elevator down to the security levels, he ran through the plan one more time in his mind. Get in, locate the dragon servants, extract them during the evacuation, and get them to medical. Simple in theory, potentially fatal in practice. The elevator doors opened to reveal controlled chaos. Security personnel were evacuating the detention level as alarms blared, announcing an environmental emergency. Through the confusion, Marcus could see Sarah directing the evacuation with professional efficiency. Technician Marcus reporting for emergency repair, he announced to the nearest security officer. Thank God, the officer replied. We've got a complete failure in the atmospheric processing system. Level C, 7 through C, 12 need immediate attention. Understood, Marcus said, moving toward the detention area with his tools. I'll need access to the maintenance conduits behind the detention cells. The security officer nodded and unlocked the restricted access door. Make it fast. We can't keep this area evacuated indefinitely. Marcus made his way through the detention area, noting the location of each cell as he passed. Most were empty, but in cells C9, C10, and C11, he found who he was looking for. Zara was in C9, sitting on a narrow bench with her hands clasped in front of her. She looked up when Marcus appeared outside her cell, and he saw a flash of surprise followed quickly by understanding. Zara, he said quietly, checking to make sure they weren't being observed. We're getting you out of here. Marcus, no, Zara said immediately. You cannot do this. The risk is worth it, Marcus interrupted, working on the electronic lock with a device Sarah had provided. We have evidence. We're going to expose this entire operation. The lock clicked open, and Marcus pulled the cell door wide. Can you walk? Are you injured? I am unharmed, Zara said, standing quickly. But, Marcus, you do not understand what you are doing. They will kill us all for this. Maybe, Marcus said, moving to the next cell where Threckmore waited. But, they'll kill you slowly if we don't act. At least this way, we have a chance. As he worked on the second lock, Zara moved up behind him. What is the plan? Get you to the medical bay, Marcus explained, freeing Threckmore and moving on to Veltar's cell. Dr. Santos is waiting there. Then, we broadcast your story to every communication network we can access. And after that, Veltar asked as Marcus freed him from his cell. After that, we hope the truth is enough to protect us all, Marcus admitted. They made their way through the detention area, moving carefully to avoid the security personnel still managing the evacuation. Marcus's comm unit crackled with updates on the environmental emergency, and he could hear Sarah's voice coordinating the response. As they reached the elevator, Marcus felt a moment of hope. They had actually done it. They had extracted the dragon's servants from detention, and, so far, no one had noticed. Then, the elevator doors opened, and Captain Reynolds stepped out, flanked by 2 security officers. Well, Captain Reynolds said, his pleasant demeanor replaced by cold authority. Mr. Marcus, out for a stroll with some of our special guests. Marcus felt his heart sink. They had been caught. Somehow, despite all their planning, they had been anticipated. Captain Reynolds, Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. I was responding to the emergency maintenance call. Yes, the emergency maintenance call, Captain Reynolds repeated. Quite convenient timing, wasn't it? An environmental failure that requires evacuation of the detention level just when 3 of our guests were scheduled for enhanced interrogation. I don't know anything about enhanced interrogation, Marcus said, though the words made him feel sick. Of course you don't, Captain Reynolds said. Just like you don't know anything about unauthorized communications with Alliance intelligence assets, or security breaches involving Classify. When do we start? He asked. The realization made Marcus even more determined to find a way to help them, even as he became increasingly aware of the dangers surrounding his efforts. Dr. Santos had been right about one thing. Patience was essential. But Marcus was beginning to understand that in situations like this, patience had to be balanced with urgency. Every day the dragon's servants remained in captivity was another day of suffering for them and their families. The challenge was finding the right moment to act, and the right people to act with. That moment, Marcus sensed, was coming soon. Himself growing nervous about meeting Dr. Santos. What if she didn't trust him? What if she thought he was some kind of spy sent to test her loyalty? What if his involvement made things worse for everyone? But, as he watched Zara carefully moving a delicate piece of equipment, her movements precise and graceful despite the heavy industrial work, he reminded himself why he was doing this. These people deserved better than to be used as political pawns. They deserved to go home to their families. The meeting with Dr. Santos would be the first step in what was sure to be a dangerous journey. But Marcus was ready to take that step. He had to be. What do you mean? Marcus asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to hear the answer. Zara looked up at him, and, in her golden eyes, Marcus saw a pain so deep it made him want to look away. Tell me, Marcus, she said, using his name without his title for the first time. What do you know about why we are here? What do you know about the dragons of Drakmor?